Next week, Nebraska Supreme Court will be hearing arguments on an abortion-related initiative.
Our Joe Harris sat down with the attorney who's going to speak for it and has the details tonight.
On Monday, attorney Josh Livingston will appear in front of the Nebraska Supreme Court to argue for the Protect Our Rights ballot initiative. If voters pass it in November, it would amend the state's constitution to include the right to an abortion until fetal viability, which is defined as when a fetus could survive after being born without extraordinary medical measures.
We are hoping that Nebraskans will have the opportunity to have their voices heard.
Earlier this week, the Nebraska Supreme Court allowed a constitutional challenge against the initiative to move forward. The Thomas More Society argues it has misleading language and violates the state's so-called single subject rule. But Livingston feels Secretary of State Bob Evnin's office has already determined the initiative is worded carefully enough to satisfy the single subject rule.
When the Secretary of State reviewed this, they found that there was no issue with the single subject rule. We're hopeful that the Supreme Court is going to come to the same conclusion.
He says he's going to argue to the Supreme Court that voters have a constitutional right to have the chance to vote on the measure.
The Constitution of Nebraska provides its citizens the opportunity to add initiatives to the ballot and ultimately to the Constitution. And when they exercise that right, when they step up and say, we want our voice to be heard, the state, the ballot should give them the opportunity to exercise that voice.
But that goes the other way, too. While the other abortion initiative, known as the Protect Our Women and Children measure, is not being challenged, Livingston says he's also going to tell justices that voters should be able to decide on that, too. It would prohibit aborting unborn children in the second and third trimesters.
Our matter will be arguing that the other side's petition should be included on the ballot if ours is included on the ballot.
Because, he says, Nebraskans should have the chance to have their voices heard on this, regardless of which side they're on. On your side, Joe Harris, 6 News.
Now, in a release today, the Thomas More Society, which opposes the Protect Our Rights initiative, says its attorneys will also argue that it would make it possible for non-physician healthcare practitioners like psychiatrists, pharmacists, or nurses to determine fetal viability. They say that's one way this initiative touches on a separate subject.